Hey guys, it's Charity. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here. Today, I'm going to talk all things corn and corn allergy specifically. So here's the deal. You guys know from my last video, I'll link it below, where I talked about how my youngest son was just recently diagnosed with alpha-gal and then a host of other food allergies, corn being one of them. So as I was going through trying to kind of wrap my head around what corn and his situation is going to be, I didn't realize the can of worms that I was opening as far as how convoluted and massive this corn allergy really is. So something important to know is there's two different kinds of corn allergies. There's those who can have an anaphylactic reaction, meaning the throat closes, their lips swell, tongue swell, cardiovascular event, severe emergency needing an Epipen and going to the ER. And then there's others like my son who may break out in hives or just simply have gut pains and maybe diarrhea. They might throw up. It's really a wide variety. And so fortunately for us, when it comes to foods and these food allergies that my son has now been diagnosed with, he does not necessarily have an extreme reaction. He is very much a internal delayed reaction. So after he eats and it's been a little bit, he starts to have some stomach pains or he doesn't feel good. He may have some diarrhea. There have been times where he has thrown up, but I can't 100% guarantee that it was because of food. It's just something that my husband and I were discussing, thinking maybe that's why, because it was like he'd get sick and then he felt fine, after a couple hours. And I just chalked it up that he just got some kind of like bug that was going around at school or something. And so that's definitely something we're going to have to watch and see if he's actually having some kind of reaction to something or a combination of things. But that being said, he does have an Epipen, and he has an Epipen for stingers. He's deathly allergic to the red wasp, the yellow jacket, and the hornet. So, the positive with already having an Epipen for those things is that if he was to have a more severe reaction, we do have an Epipen on hand to help us out. My hope and prayer is that he'll stay where he's at and maybe eventually even grow out of it. It's very individual, bio-individual, and it's something that I talk about a lot and that we learned at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition is that everybody's body is so bio-individual as to what works for you. And one person's food is another person's poison. And sometimes you'll grow out of it and sometimes you won't, especially like with alpha-gal, which I talk about in the last video. He could have this problem for a year and kind of grow out of it as he gets older, or he could have it for over a decade. I mean, there's really no telltale sign of like what's going to happen. So with corn, I'm just taking it kind of one step at a time. And this is not a very common allergy. In fact, as I was trying to do my research on it, I only found a few people here on YouTube that were talking about it and a couple websites. I was surprised that a lot of people don't even necessarily take it seriously. Soy is in the top 10 allergens with like peanuts and shellfish and those kinds of things, and dairy and gluten and wheat, but corn is not. And so it was more difficult to kind of really find a lot on it, but I was able to find some great resources and some people that have been living with this. However, there was nothing on kids and allergies. And I have to say, I was really kind of surprised. So there's a lot of information out there that I was able to find that had great educational information and testimonies and experiences. It was really great to hear those things and see those things for learning and information. But there was really no tangible, how do I feed my kid now that they can't have the things that they've usually had? And especially with corn. Of course, you can find like gluten-free school lunches and you can find dairy-free school lunches. There's no alpha-gal anything. I think I found one lady that talks about her experience for the past couple of years with it, but she's not a kid. She's an adult, and so she can make a conscious decision. We have more control over saying, okay, I know this is hurting me and I'm going to make a conscious, prolonged decision. Kids, it's not that easy. I teach that in my Picky Eaters Plate course of helping our kids eating more. They don't have the the foresight to be able to know that, okay, if I start eating this broccoli, that in the end, in the future, I'm going to have, better health. They don't have that foresight. They can't comprehend that. And so telling my 5-year-old that he is no longer going to be able to eat corn, soy, gluten, wheat, chocolate, and then any mammalian product, he can't even understand that. He doesn't even understand what I'm saying. And so, and because his reactions are not immediate, like I have an immediate reaction to white potato, because he doesn't have an immediate reaction, his discomfort and response is delayed by, a couple hours. It's hard to make that connection for him. And I think this is going to be my biggest challenge. And so when we talk about corn specifically, the reason I wanted to talk about it individually first is because it is massive. Corn is in everything. What we eat and a big majority of what we don't eat. And so the exposure is really, really prevalent. And it's can feel almost impossible on how to manage it. So I wanted to talk to you today, just kind of like an overview of some of the things that I've learned in my own personal research. You can go to Google and find all of this stuff out and find the limited resources that I was able to find as far as corn allergy specifically. But yeah, it's a lot. And so I did a blog post. I'll link it below, and you can go and look at it in massive detail. I just wanted to hit on some of the big points and the things that I'm learning and kind of be real with you about where I'm at as a mom trying to tackle this, where I've already got this kid that's starting to eat really, really well and eating more foods, moving him out of extreme picky eating into partial picky eating to then better eating, and have seen great success with him, to now have to tackle food allergies. So some of the things I was helping him transition to, I'm not going to be able to give him. So it's daunting, to say the least. And it can be really stressful. And I think parents have a hard time with this. And so I want to create a space where we can just be honest and real about our personal experience and journey, but also give you tools and examples of like, what am I going to fix him? And what are his school lunches going to look like? And what is his snack going to look like? Because he's not going to be able to eat anything at the school anymore. So I want to take you on that journey and provide that, because I couldn't find it for myself. But I did want to talk about a couple of the ingredients that I think are really, really prevalent and that are corn-based ingredients, but that we don't necessarily realize that they're in so much. So obviously, when you look on the back of a label, you can see anything that says corn on it is obviously a corn-based product, but there's a ton of stuff that I didn't realize was corn-based that's in a lot of our food. And like I said, there's an extensive list on that, and I'm sure there's more, but that's just what I could find. And yeah, go check it out and just kind of see for yourself. But I wanted to talk about a couple, I think 4 of the things that are really prevalent that I was kind of surprised at certain products or foods or non-foods that they're in. And one of them is cornstarch. So I already use arrowroot powder, which is a substitute for cornstarch for myself. So I already don't use cornstarch, but cornstarch is in a lot of things that I didn't realize, like antibiotics for one, which is crazy because my son has had 13 rounds of antibiotics. And man, like I would have never thought that there would have been cornstarch in antibiotics, or aspirin for that matter. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. I don't know really what to say about some of these things, but you can also find it in canned vegetables, in cosmetics, feminine products, in powdered sugars and flour mixes. That's kind of obvious that if you're going to buy, a pancake mix, it's already going to have the cornstarch in there, because all you have to do is add water or add an egg in water or something. It's also oftentimes found in the coating of the pharmaceutical or even food casings. So I knew this, and I learned this with the alpha-gal, that there's oftentimes mammalian meat products in the coating of your pharmaceuticals and in the food coatings and casings. So that's something I didn't realize that had corn in it either. Freezer meals and stuff like that, obviously. Salad dressings, some of these things are kind of obvious, so you can go look at that full list. But the other thing that is, I think, the most prominent thing in our food supply that is corn-based is corn syrup, specifically high fructose corn syrup. And when I was going through my own personal liver treatment and trying to figure out how to best support my liver, the number one thing that my GI nutritionist said is, she was like, if you could do one thing out of everything that we've talked about, I would suggest cutting out high fructose corn syrup completely, because it is so taxing on the liver and it is not good for us. So corn syrup, specifically high fructose corn syrup, is our number one sweetener in America, in our food supply. So it's going to be in literally everything. And when you think about your kids and you think about what your kids eat, I can guarantee you, if you go into your pantry and you flip the boxes over, the tomato sauce over, you look at your dressings, your cans even, it's going to be in there. Your dairy products, it's going to be in there. Baby food, it's crazy. Another place that's a guarantee that you're probably going to see some form of corn syrup is fruit. So if you buy canned fruit, or, the little fruit cups that you buy your kids and you think you're doing really good because they're going to eat some mandarin oranges, or they're going to eat, the little mixed cup with the cherries and whatever, the pineapple or whatever it is, oftentimes have corn syrup in it. Your fruit drinks are going to have it, your jellies and jams. So if you're making them a peanut butter sandwich, if they're not, peanut allergy, that's going to have it in there. There's going to be potential of corn in the bakery products, so the bread. So not only do you have to worry about the wheat and the gluten, but then the corn in like the tortillas and the shells and all that kind of stuff too. So it's also often in pickles, which this is really hard for me because we can a lot of our stuff, and some of the ingredients that we use, like the seeds and stuff, might be corn-based, and so I'm going to have to look at that. And he might not be able to eat some of the stuff that I can. So that's something I've got to kind of dive deeper into, and I'll have to share that with you later. But obviously syrups and vinegars and peanut butter, things like that are all going to have high fructose corn syrup or corn syrup in it. So the best thing to do is to read the label. And like I said, if you go into your kitchen right now and you flip over stuff, you're going to be surprised at how much corn syrup or a variation of corn syrup you have in your food. So that's definitely the number one thing that I've already been aware of for a while, and I try to avoid at all costs. But that's something that I think parents have to be aware of, is that corn syrup is rampant in our food supply. The other thing is maltodextrins, which are often found in like dehydrated food and gravy mixes, might even be in your instant teas or breakfast foods. So like if you have instant oatmeal or something, it's also found in like low calorie sweeteners, marshmallows, which it's summertime right now, so we all love our s'mores. That's something that, our kiddos aren't going to really be able to partake in if you still do that and you're not moving away from those kinds of sugars. Non-stick sprays, so a lot of the ingredients to help make it spray and the oil itself is a corn-based oil, and obviously in your snack foods you're going to have the maltodextrose in there too, or maltodextrin. Dextrose is also found in antibiotics and often in your beverages and breakfast foods and canned fruit and veggies and even your flavorings and colorings. So even caramel, or caramel color, however you say it. One thing that I was surprised to find that might be a corn derivative is citric acid, because I guess I didn't know what that was. And that's in everything. Citric acid is also in everything, and that's a form of dextrose, which can be a corn derivative as well. So it's all encompassing. and that's not even touching on the corn oils, and stuff like that. But one other thing that I was really surprised about, and I'll have to watch with my son, is toothpaste. There's sorbitol, which is a form of dextrose. And I again, like corn in my toothpaste, and it's crazy to me. And so that's something I'm going to have to check into. But one other thing that I've been using for myself, because I don't have a corn allergy and I didn't even think about this, is Xanthan Gum. So I have a wheat and a gluten allergy, and now my son does as well. So Xanthan Gum is often found in a lot of the grain-free options that are out there, but that's corn. That's a corn derivative. So, like that's crazy to me. So I'm gonna have to rethink that too. And then, like I mentioned, the corn oils is obviously in everything. It's in, vitamins and pills to cooking oils and your condiments, your potato chips, those kinds of things, all in your sauces and stuff like that too. But those are probably the big ones: the corn syrup, the cornstarch, the maltodextrin, and the dextrose are probably the big four that I was able to find a lot more stuff on. But obviously go to that link in my bio and you can look at the big old long list that I was just able to find rather quickly. The other thing, like if you have a more extreme reaction to the corn that I didn't realize that has nothing to do with food, is that there can be corn in airbags and adhesives. So like if you lick the back of a stamp or an envelope, balloons and beach balls, your floaties like that you have at the pool or at the beach that your kids are playing on, cardboard can have corn in it, as well as charcoal, which was really surprising to me. Your a lot of personal care products and lotions and things like that, which I also have to think about with the mammalian meat allergy too for him. So those are something to definitely think about. And I was also surprised that plastic often has corn, some variation of corn in it. And I was really surprised at that. I didn't expect, I think I was thinking something totally different was in plastic. And I think, and those things may be, but there's a potential to have corn in there. Also, Play-Doh is a very popular thing at schools. And, putties and things like that, they can have corn in them, as well as your inks. Like here in my office, I've got a printer, so your cartridges could have some in there, toilet paper might, those kinds of things. And then there's the coating on paper plates and like cups and like cardboard cartons. There's this coating, it's Zein, and I don't know exactly how you pronounce it, if I'm honest, but it's on, like, I was thinking about this, like if we go, camping, or if we're out at a family reunion or something, we have paper plates. Well, there's usually a coating on it. And I was thinking, I was like, yeah, there is. That's also this Zein ingredient. That's a corn derivative. So it's just shocking to me. Another thing that I heard that people that have a more extreme reaction, and I think it might depend on where you live as far as what makes it into your water supply. Some people have to have osmosis machines to keep corn out of their water. So the corn that you drink in your house or that you shower in, if you have the more topical reaction, like with the airbags and things like that, can be really severe. And I had no idea about that either. So, yeah, I don't think my son doesn't have a problem, I don't think, with the water. So, and where we live, we don't really have any corn growing and things like that. That's in the next state over. But yeah, that's something to think about. And we're in Oklahoma, so Kansas is obviously a corn growing, and so their water, if they put their water, it's going to make its way down to us via the rivers and lakes and such. So that's something to think about. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to touch on that just briefly. And like I said, it's more in detail on my blog, but you know, I think as parents, we have to understand that, like, we have the ability to make changes in our lives. And I preach this all the time to parents when I'm trying to help them with their picky eaters and showing them and getting them to have the success that I've had with my kids. And though we're like hitting this roadblock with the food allergies and having to kind of rethink the way that I'm helping him transition and continue to see progress that he's already made is definitely something that can seem crippling, I think, to a lot of parents, and you can feel like you're failing, and especially if they're going to have a more anaphylactic type of response, that is terrifying. I'm telling you, we live out here in the country on 280 acres, and we're surrounded. The property next to us is all open, and so we live in this beautiful location. But you want to talk about ticks, and you want to talk about hornets and wasps, and they're everywhere. And so the thing is that I've had to help myself kind of get over the fear of something happening, because it's probably going to happen. It's a matter of when. And I think that if we as parents, when we're looking at specifically corn and all kinds of food allergies and like the alpha-gal and all this stuff, if we can just be as proactive as possible and trying to be prepared with having our own food options and having a plan for how to respond to it when something does happen is really best. Because the stress, I can tell you, over the last couple of weeks has been immense, because I was like, okay, I'm getting ready to start we're going to be going back to school, and I've got to figure out what I'm going to feed him in his school lunch, because he can't eat the food there now. And then the worry of like his friends are going to be able to eat this and he's not going to, and the things that he used to eat, like the chips and things that all of his friends at his school are going to be able to eat, he's not going to be able to have them. And it's like, how do you explain that to a 5-year-old and help them understand it? So it's a process, and it's going to be a process, and I'll definitely share that with you. But corn is definitely going to be my big task. It's going to be the big one. Fortunately, like I said, it's not a life or death situation for him right now. Hopefully it will stay that way, where it's just he has more minor gut problems and maybe some diarrhea, but it's going to be quite the ride. So I hope that this has been a little bit informative to you. I've got the links below I want you to check out too. But yeah, corn is something that is not readily talked about, and it's not readily known as to being a problem, but it is in everything. And, you know, that's not even touching on the fact that most of it's GMO, which is personally why I kind of think there might have started to be this rise in issues with food allergies, where there used to not be any food allergies, very rare, you know, unless it was like a condition like celiac disease, something like that. But yeah, it's like 1 in 14 kids now have food allergies. 1 in 14. That's crazy. You know, that's crazy. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys, give you some information, link you to my blog, and hopefully we'll get this tackled and we'll be able to come up with some great options and ways to combat corn allergy. And I will definitely be sharing that with you as we go along. So I'll see you next time. Bye.